Hey guys. So it's been a while since I last uploaded, probably about a month, and it's mainly because I traveled to Texas, then Louisiana, then Michigan, then back to California, and spent an entire weekend as a groomsman in a wedding. So obviously, there's a lot that I've missed, and a lot that's been on my mind. But funny enough, I think the thing that I wanted to talk about first after all this time is my surprising satisfaction with the state of television. I know a huge part of being a script editor and a novelist is finding fault in things and being able to critique and correct them. But honestly, so much more about the job is finding happiness from a story well told. And honestly, I think I'm in the same camp as many of you when it comes to the feeling that we've been utterly betrayed by narratives with piss poor endings. The first thing that comes to mind for me actually is Penny Dreadful. Now, I'm like the only person who ever brings up this show, and part of me thinks that it's like a psyop that only I fell for. But in the case that it actually exists, it has one of the strangest, wow bad endings that I have ever come across. I know apparently a lot of the poor quality came from the behind the scenes stuff outside of the writer's control, like the cancellation of the series when it was supposed to go like way longer seasons, but that doesn't make the final product any less bad. I really can't overstate how ridiculous the final season was. And if you haven't seen the show, all I will say is that Dracula and the devil simp over the main character, while the Wolfman figures out that he's a divine instrument of God, all while Lady Frankenstein creates an anarcho-feminist uprising while beefing with Dorian Gray. Honestly, some of those details might be wrong, but at this point the actual plot is so asinine that I don't really even care. Big show endings have really run the full gambit, from just mediocre and unfulfilling to straight up bad. Shows that had a ton of potential and just kind of tripped inoffensively at the finish line are Legend of Korra and Ozark. The endings weren't good by any stretch of the imagination, but they weren't terrible, at least to me. And then you have the big baddies of bad endings, like Game of Thrones. And even though I haven't seen them, I've heard How I Met Your Mother and Dexter are also up there. And the interesting thing about all of this is that these aren't like niche narratives. Nearly every show that I've mentioned, save Penny Dreadful, has been a massive, culturally significant landmark television show. And yet, even with all their resources and writing teams, they couldn't nail a good ending. Honestly, bad endings for show have become kind of like an expectation nowadays. Consumers have been hurt for so long and so consistently that it just feels like the default state of things. So that's why over these last few weeks, it feels so weird to actually have two great endings to two great TV shows. Hopefully, if you are watching this, you can share in having also watched Succession and Barry. HBO basically had to re-justify its whole existence after the cataclysmic embarrassment that was Game of Thrones ending. And now, years later, two of its biggest series have come to a close and repeated what could have been an equally embarrassing landing. But they didn't. They were freaking awesome. Succession and Barry couldn't be any more different shows from each other, but what they have in common is a creative team that has a genuine passion for the work and a drive to tell a story not for money or praise, but to present a narrative in its highest, most genuine form. Barry's final season is surreal, like trippy. It has some time skips, hallucination, vision quest, and some of the best TV deaths in years. Succession surprised us with a mid-season bombshell and basically used that shockwave to ride us through the experience of showing characters in their most raw and vulnerable states. Both the shows ended on a bittersweet note, leaving our characters in a spot where some dealt with the absolute loss of their worlds and others experienced happiness and salvation. I'm really doing my best here, by the way, not to spoil either of these shows because I want you guys to be able to watch it, but it's a testament to the reality that the shows can still end well in this era where so much of television seems to be geared towards making money and not telling a story. And the other way to interpret this is to be glad that these stories are ending at the right time. Revenue has become such a driving force behind narrative art that we get stories that run far past when they should. Jumping the Shark, for example. I mean, as much as I love the Fast and Furious movies, and I do, they are dumb fun, and we are on what, like 10? We've had 50 billion Marvel movies and 49 billion Marvel shows. There have been 5+ Pirates of the Caribbean, I think, 9 Star Wars with more to come, and 6 Lord of the Rings, I think. It's kinda cool when the creatives behind some shows are just willing to say, no, we're done. The Obi-Wan show didn't need more than one season, and the writers have been adamant about that. Chernobyl and Watchmen didn't need sequel seasons, and they aren't getting them. Barry and Succession ended on the right time for each of their respective narratives, And that's a good thing. Sure, would I have liked there to be more simply because I liked watching the shows be amazing? Yeah. But to quote Harvey Dent, you either end as Breaking Bad or you run long enough to become The Walking Dead. I'm not saying that my hope in Hollywood is completely renewed, especially with the extraordinarily crappy way that the writers have been treated recently, but it is a very nice sign that major TV shows can actually have an ending that lives up to the heights that brought them fame in the first place. Anyway, thanks for watching all the way to the end. That is my ramble for this week. If you guys want me to talk about anything else, just let me know down in the comments. I will also leave links for my Patreon, my website for my editing services, my books, and anything else that you guys might want from me. As always, it was a pleasure. I will talk to you all again soon.